Hey everyone, you with Tom. Thanks for joining us on Tesla and EV News Update here on Ludicrous feed. Welcome to episode 5 indeed. I want to welcome Riz from Carloop for joining us today. Hey Riz, how are you?
Hey Tom, going well? How you going?
I'm very well, thanks. And I just want to thank everyone else also for all the positive feedback and comments you've been putting in the comments section over the last 4 episodes. So yeah, and here we are, episode 5. We'll keep doing what we're doing. All right, let's run through the stories today as usual, and then we'll spend some time going through each one in more detail. So the first one is new tax deals deliver $10,000 saving in Australia for new EVs. Second Ora Funky Cat electric hatchback spotted in Australia, thanks to Riz. We look at inventories for inventory Model 3s in Australia for South Australia. Exclusive revamped Model 3 Project Highland. That looks really interesting. Tesla gets Gigafactory incentives from South Korea's president. Moving to North American news, Consumer Reports drops recommendation for Ford Mustang Mach-E. Lucid shares insights on the Air Pure and its sub $90,000 price. Moving to the European market, Porsche 718 Boxster electric prototype spotted. That looks really interesting. Volkswagen to launch all-electric ID.AERO sedan worldwide. Staying with VW, CEO is saying that the European Union is losing competitiveness while urging clean energy investments. Moving to China now, Wuling's Baojun electric SUV spied. Next generation of Neo cars is coming to the US. And finally, Thai EV firm reportedly to buy 150,000 EVs from Chinese startup Aiways. All right, let's start with today's top story, which is the new federal electric vehicle discount or incentive, making it as much of a saving as $10,000 for Tesla Model Y, and some EVs will be as cheap as Mazda 3. Riz, this is going to have significant flow-on effects for the electric vehicle market in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like it, Tom. Uh, obviously, we haven't seen all the details yet, but from what's being put out there, seems like businesses are just going to be taking quite a big sort of cash break, if that's the way of putting it, by switching over to EVs and not having to go to petrol stations to fill up their existing fleets.
Exactly right. And we know that with leasing, most people keep their cars for 3 to 5 years. So after that time, that'll certainly buoy the second-hand market as well. Now, I just want to explain to our viewers exactly how this works. I've been thinking about this a lot, and hopefully this will make sense to all of you. I'm going to put my camera a little bit bigger now so you can see what I'm doing here. This is my cold, hard cash that my take-home pay is. Not exactly, but let's just stick with this example here. So, for example, this is my take-home pay each week. The government taxes my take-home pay based on the entire amount. So our federal government will take away this much for tax. And with that in mind, this is how much I've got to spend on my new EV. All right, so that's the remaining amount. Through novated leasing, which is a form of salary sacrificing, what you can say to your employer is, well, instead of taxing you first, can I use my entire take-home pay to buy my EV or buy my car through novated leasing? So if they've got that arranged already, they can say, yes, no problem. So you go and buy your new EV, for example. Okay, that's of course not to scale. This is just an example. The government will then tax you based on the remaining amount after you've spent the money on an EV. So obviously your tax will be less because you've taken that money out for a EV or a car already, which is fantastic. Now, of course, that's not the entire story. You might think, oh, great. The government is taking less money out, say $30 instead of $50. That's good. But then the government imposes something called a fringe benefit tax onto your employer based on the amount that you have spent on the new car. So that might be something like $5, which the government puts the tax on your employer. They normally pass that on to you, the employee. So in the form of, say, fees, for example, they might disguise that as fees, which has happened to me in the past, being an employee, buying a car through that mean. So, for example, they might take that much out of your pay as well in the form of fees, which is essentially fringe benefits tax. So that goes back to the government. But it's still better off doing that you're still better off doing that. So instead of paying $50 worth of tax, you're paying $35, for example, even with the fringe benefits tax. But now with the new EV discount through the new federal legislation, that fringe benefits tax is no longer applicable to electric vehicle sales, which is fantastic. So that's, figuratively speaking, that's how much you're saving over the lifetime of your lease. And that applies to all new electric vehicles and PHEVs or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles until 2025. Of course, to be eligible for this discount, you must be an employee. So you must earn a wage or a salary through PAYG. It doesn't apply to you if you're a self-employed person or if you earn your own money. So that's an important distinction there. Riz, does that make sense to you?
You explained it way better than I could. And that's, yeah, it does. From a novated lease point of view, there's a fair few novated lease companies. Some employers use Maxia, there's Lease Plan, and various other ones. If you work for a large enough company, generally speaking, they already have some way of working with those companies to help you get behind the wheel of a car. Why not it being an EV, given the tax savings that you're about to get when you purchase one? So it's fantastic for electrification around Australia, and people can finally have the EV grin without paying too much tax. And nobody wants to pay tax.
No, nobody wants to pay tax. And the key terms you must mention to your employer is either to use the word or terms novated lease or salary sacrifice. It's pretty much the same thing in terms of buying a car. Novated leasing is a form of salary sacrificing. If your employer doesn't have this set up, you can actually go to one of the outsourced companies, as Riz said, and they can actually speak to your employer and set it up that way as well. And going back to the article here from The Driven, it makes a lot of sense to do it this way now because, you can save as much as, I'll just scroll down to this part of the article here, they've said that you can save up to $6,000 buying a Tesla Model Y this way. For example, a purchase price of $74,000. Normally, you would save about $3,800 per year through salary sacrificing. You can now save up to $9,800 a year through salary sacrificing without having to pay the fringe benefits tax to your employer, which is great. And if you go even cheaper, for example, if you buy a cheaper car like an MG ZS EV with the new federal incentive, it's actually going to be the same price as salary sacrificing a Mazda 3. I know which car I'd rather have is an electric vehicle, that's for sure.
That's it.
All right, well, hope that makes sense. I'll leave a comment below if that does or it doesn't. I'd love to hear from you, or if you want to purchase an EV that way. All right, let's move on to the second article today, which is the Ora Funky Cat electric hatchback, the second one spotted by our very own Riz Akhtar here. Ora Funky Cat is from the Great Wall Motors brand in China.
Yeah, that's it, Tom. I think as many of our audience already knows, I like to put my runners on and get out there. And this time around, I managed to spot a second one. Last time I parked a Model 3 next to it just to get an idea, and I think there's a picture of it when I saw, yeah, there it is. That was the first one. You can see the number plates are slightly thinner on this one compared to the other one. Yeah, so there's a second one, right-hand drive, like the first one, same color, only a bit cleaner, so it must be newer. And this is the photos of that one, looking at it from the rear window, as well as sort of the interior shots as well. Looks very well finished. Yeah, Ora, if you're listening, we've got to get one. Tom's got to drive one. He can come down to Melbourne, pick one up. We can go for a test drive, and it's exciting to see this smaller form factor finally starting to come into the country.
Yeah, absolutely. We do mention this quite a bit. We do want to see more hot hatches or smaller EVs that can run around town. Very much so. So this Ora will definitely fit that bill. And it looks like there are two variants in overseas markets, 48 kilowatt hours and 63 kilowatt hours, around that 300 to 400 kilometer range, perfect for city driving and even road tripping, really, with more DC chargers coming online in Australia. Thank you, Riz, for checking that out for us in Melbourne.
No worries.
Let's move on now to South Australia, and we have been talking about inventory stock for Tesla Model 3s in Australia. They're starting to come into the country now, and look, there's quite a few cars for South Australia.
It's all happening now. It's there's a few long range models there at the moment. just monitoring social media as well, a lot of people are canceling Model 3 orders because they've either bought a Model Y now, or they are not in a financial position anymore to purchase a Model 3. So they've cancelled orders on them, and just keep an eye out on inventory so you don't end up waiting over 6 months like the original customers did. And the other trend that I'm sort of noticing now, based on some of the data that we're seeing at Carloop, is the prices of what even these guys that don't no longer want them, they're just happy to give it away for whatever they paid. So if they don't end up on the inventory, you can purchase it off potentially these customers that have picked it up for the same price as what they paid for it back in February. So you might end up paying less than what you're seeing here on the used market, but it will naturally bring the used Tesla prices down as well over the coming months. This is a great way of getting into a brand new Tesla directly from Tesla, and for a pretty reasonable price, given some Kia EV6 owners are waiting up to 2 years to get behind the wheel of their EV, and you can have one now.
That's right. Yeah, if you don't want to wait, this is the way to go. I don't see any standard range vehicles here, but if I should note to the federal discount we talked about earlier, if your purchase price falls under the luxury car tax threshold, which is about mid $80,000 at this stage, I think, then you can certainly qualify for the federal discount. And that's a great way to buy a new or used electric vehicle through that means. So check these out. These go up. These go very quickly, and they do change as well. So have a look for yourselves. Next one is something I'm very, very curious about. Model 3 revamp exclusive Project Highland. Riz, what's this about?
From what I can see, Tom, it's in recent times, Reuters has collated information from some experts that seem to be credible, and at other times there isn't the credibility there. This case, it's sort of half and half. Hard to tell what's going on. But we will know within the next 9 months or so, because Shanghai, according to this report, will be the first plant to produce the revamped Model 3, this Project Highland, if it is true. Some of the design inspirations that Tesla gets, you can sort of see the minimalistic design in the new Model S's with the yoke steering wheel and a fair few other changes. So they're reducing the number of parts in these cars. This may potentially include less parts, not saying it will include a yoke steering wheel, but it may include even less parts than what we see today in a Model 3 and a Model Y, particularly the Model 3s themselves, but also the front and rear castings that Model Y has at the moment. The Model 3 has still hundreds of parts, from what I understand, to build the front and rear of the car, where Model Y, it's one part for the rear casting. That's what Tesla's trying to do, is implement that such a sophisticated manufacturing method, but in essence, reduce costs and reduce the work that they have to do to assemble these cars, hence being able to produce more with less, high gross margin, better for the customer as well, and they get their car quicker. So a lot of things going on in that report. Hopefully it comes out true. Tom, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, look, I guess over the years following Tesla, we know that they don't generally publicize changes very publicly. We rely on innuendo and rumors and social media posts to keep us informed, and people like Riz, of course. But yeah, they don't often say, look, 2023 model includes this and that, like other manufacturers. So we just got to keep our eye out for design changes and more efficient parts and things like that. So yeah, I welcome it. I think that's a way to go to make your vehicle more efficient, more reliable, all those things. And yeah, we'll see what happens in the next round of Model 3 releases, for sure.
Very exciting.
Indeed. Next article is Tesla, staying with Tesla, Gigafactory incentive offers from South Korea's President Yoon. This is back on the back of more news that the rumors that the next Tesla Gigafactory will be in North Asia and Korea.
I guess this time it's been publicized quite a bit, because South Korea is in a very unique position because they have everything needed to make electric cars. LG and
Mm,
Panasonic, well, not Panasonic, LG is one of the
mm,
main brands that, based in South Korea, they already supply battery packs for certain models to Tesla. And it just means that, they have the battery, which is the main component, to be able to supply, and they can easily expand in their own country than, let's say, trying to establish and make plants in the US and other places, because they get preferential treatment because they're such large conglomerates within their own country. So government does what it does to make it all happen. Now what they're doing is getting Tesla to come in with open arms. The same thing as what happened. We wouldn't have Giga Shanghai producing all these cars if, the Chinese government didn't allow for that to happen. So in some ways, it's sort of replicating the same formula to try and encourage Tesla to base themselves there. Whether Tesla does or not is a different story, depending on what their long-term plans are. We could have an affordable model, and that would be better off in Indonesia, where they have nickel and a whole lot of other things for, the more affordable markets of the world. But this is looking promising, and you never know what Tesla ends up doing. I would still think Canada for the next Gigafactory potentially being announced at the Cybertruck Semi event.
mm. That's only a couple of days away, really. I think you're right, Riz. With the markets, you've got to make it quite favourable for your country to host a gigafactory or any sort of manufacturing, really, from an overseas, EV or car manufacturer to come and enter. For example, if we want a gigafactory in Australia, we've just got to make it favourable for that to happen here. We've got the minerals. We'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the next gigafactory plant. Indeed. All right, moving on to more news from North America. The Ford Mustang Mach-E has been dropped from Consumer Reports as a recommendation due to reliability issues.
Hmm. Uh, Ford's had a hit or a miss with this car, because in China they had big plans and then they were delayed. Um, and China's a big market for Ford once again, and the biggest electric vehicle market. Um, Likewise, I think in the US and other markets as well. My understanding of Consumer Reports is it's similar to Choice here in
Mm.
Australia, more consumer focused, what's right for the consumer type of thing. So for them, it's a pretty big call for them to sort of say we don't recommend it because of warranty issues and reliability and other things. So yeah, I guess they're advising consumers to think of an alternative when they're looking at an EV. Um, Interesting to see.
Yeah, that was the only EV that was dropped apparently from that list. And just reading this bit here, it says we've tried to update with software update to prevent damage, etc. And obviously, that's caught the eye of Consumer Reports, dropping its
Mm.
recommendation. Interesting. Staying with North America, Lucid is going to be releasing the Air Pure sub $90,000 price.
Oh, pretty cool. I mean, they look awesome.
Mm,
90,000, sub 90,000. It's a Model S, standard Model S, which is extremely quick these days. The one of the most efficient vehicles Tesla makes. So that's what this is competing with. Um, It'd be interesting to see if they do get it there at that price point, because Lucid's generally sort of Model S plaid money in the US, above 120,000 US dollars.
mm.
So a more affordable version is always welcomed. Um, whether there's a large enough market for it, or whether they can produce enough of them, it would be. I guess we'll see it in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, Lucid's always aimed for that high-end luxury segment of the market. Their cars are very expensive, but they do look very nice as well. So, yeah,
Hmm.
indeed, we'll see what happens. Moving to Europe now, Porsche 718 Boxster electric prototype spotted testing. Wow, this will be exciting to test.
Oh, Boxster is one of the. It's probably the second most iconic car Porsche makes after the 911.
Yes.
And yeah, interesting to see how they're trying to electrify their whole lineup as such, and they've made some good commitments on wanting to do it. Is that an exhaust pipe? on the back of the.
Oh, it is, yeah.
But
Hmm.
it's it's good to see that they are being progressive. Launching in 2025, they've already pushed back the Macan Electric
Mm.
because of software issues. So in some ways, it's a good thing they're sort of moving this past the 2024 Macan launch. But yeah, I mean, there is a market for them. It's this car sort of reminds me of Tesla's beginnings with the Roadster because it was a sports car as such, based out of a Lotus chassis. So yeah, there is a market for them, whether it gets here in time or before we have the MG Roadsters and other things. That would be, yeah, interesting to see in the coming months.
Yeah, look, there are obviously a lot of Porsche fans around, and glad to see they're starting to take things a bit more seriously with new electric vehicle models. So,
Hmm.
again, interesting to watch. Yeah, staying with Europe, Volkswagen to launch all-electric ID.AERO sedan worldwide. So we are yet to see an ID platformed car in Australia, apart from maybe the Cupra. That's going to be launched soon. But yeah, a sort of a de novo Volkswagen ID. It'd be good to see them finally launch here in Australia.
Yeah, it's Volkswagen. If you're listening, we are missing your identity, the
Yes.
ID in in our in the country, and I think the ID.4 is not far, but I guess it's this is more sort of traditional sedan, which would be cool to see. Good to see manufacturers finally starting to sort of do a bit of a U-turn and make more of sedans. I think that personally, I feel some of the Chinese EV brands have sort of pushed them that way. The Xpengs of the world and the Neos now launching into European market. So they're a little bit scared as to
Yep.
what's to come. So yeah, it's good to see, and it would be good to see the ID series get here next year.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Volkswagen, I don't know how much they've got to catch up, but it looks like their CEO has spoken for me already. Moving to this article here, CEO says EU is losing competitiveness while urging clean energy investments. I don't know, as you said, Riz, I think China seems to be pushing ahead with their new energy vehicles.
Yeah, and this, from what I can gather with this type of commentary, it's more like, well, the fear amongst politicians, well, if you go clean too quickly, then you're opening doors to Chinese OEMs, which means that we won't be very competitive in our own market. Now, that is unfortunately, the fear mongering that is going on in Europe at the moment. The boss of Stellantis, saying the same things that, at the Paris Auto Show recently, he was saying, well, why are we opening doors and giving them preferential treatment, which the Europeans aren't doing, just the Chinese are able to do it and showcase the products and stuff. So it's quite interesting comments from, it's different to Herbert Diess now. Herbert Diess had his own ways and said, we're going to lose jobs if we don't do anything. He left. Now they're saying, well, actually, we're going to lobby the government to say, stop these manufacturers from coming in.
Mm.
So yeah, interesting times ahead. But either way, one little other point, a data point that I saw, and I'll do a bit more digging up for future episodes on that. Apparently, last month in Western Europe, the Chinese OEMs represented a greater amount of registrations than the South Korean and the Japanese brands put together for EVs.
Wow, very interesting.
And we're
Yeah,
seeing the same here in Australia, particularly with BYD in their second month or whatever,
yeah.
already exceeding and becoming the second best selling EV brand on a month basis, next, well, just under Tesla.
I mean, you can sense that, right? And you've got the data now to back it up. Like, you can
Hmm.
sense the Chinese brands are going to be affordable. They're going to be the new Toyotas, the new Mazdas in the next 10 years or so. Um, like, for the BYD Atto 3 is just pretty good value, almost unbeatable, really, for what you get for that price. So I can see the concern coming out of Europe for sure.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, another space to watch for sure. Moving to China, indeed now. Wuling's Baojun electric SUV spied for the first time in China. Look at this thing. Wow.
A regular sort of audience would know I love small cars, small electric cars. This is like a Suzuki Jimny on steroids.
Yes.
So it'd be good to see, as it's a city car, it's an off-road car, whatever you want to make of it. Um, but yeah, it's pretty cool that they're trying different form factors or body types that, generally have done well in other markets, but most manufacturers have forgotten about. I mean,
Mm.
how cool and tough does that look?
Yep. Yep. That looks super rugged. That's pretty much unbreakable. That thing. Don't have to worry about parking, right? That people are worried about you.
That's exactly. So yeah, it's cool to see that this form factor is coming back. And if I was an executive at Jeep or Stellantis, I would
Mm.
really be worried because this is going to come and eat your lunch too.
That's right. Especially with like car sharing, right? You could borrow this for the weekend and drive somewhere for a weekend or
Flexi
a day
car
trip.
and
Yeah.
yeah, car next door, all of them.
Turo. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yep. Indeed. Yeah. Again, another space to watch. Staying with China, we've been talking about NIO a little bit with the ET5 shooting brake, but William Li, CEO of NIO, is saying that it's going to the US.
This was an internal meeting that Lee had to celebrate the 8th anniversary, which we covered a couple of
Ah.
episodes ago.
Mhm.
And it was, part of it is just, internal talk to share the vision of the company and where he sees things are going with NIO. The European expansion, huge deal. And at the same time, they basically haven't got their eyes. They're not going to stop at Europe.
Mhm.
They're going straight to the US, which US government's doing everything they can to ensure with the new Inflation Reduction Act that doesn't happen. So the competitive talk that we were just talking about in Europe, that this Volkswagen and others are quite worried, it's already happening in the US. But like we said earlier, these brands will find a way of getting in. And if it means partnerships, collaborations, whatever's got to happen, good to see NIO make some fantastic sedans and SUVs. European expansion's looking good so far. They've learned a lot. They're not only going to offer leasing, they're also going to offer purchase of these vehicles in Europe, and they're just taking that learning and heading back straight into the US. The other very quick point is he also mentioned um, potentially launching a more affordable EV brand. So BYD is doing the opposite. They're going and potentially launching a luxury brand.
Mm.
NIO is saying, well, we're going to launch a more affordable brand.
Yep.
So that could potentially get EVs that are under 45,000 Australian dollars. Exciting space to watch.
Yeah, that's definitely the price bracket a lot of people are looking at. And look, if you've never seen a Chinese-made car like a BYD Atto 3, go have a look at it because I think they're trying very hard to check off that, that made in China tag that people have been, scared of for many years. The quality is actually very good. You may not agree with the design, but the quality is surely unbeatable. And I'll love to see more of these cars come to Australia, or at least I want to see them up close. I'm sure Riz, you do too as well.
Yeah, so William, Lee, if you're listening, as
Yeah,
we always say, there's a call out.
absolutely.
Would be happy to come and visit you in Europe where you're launching. I think German, so NIO has this thing called NIO Open House. I think they're called Open House, but it's basically their delivery and experience centers. They're opening their first one in Germany in December.
Mm.
So I'm sure we'll cover that in our future episodes, and we'll get an invite shortly to fly over there and check it out.
That's right. I'm happy to go. I'm sure Riz is as well. All right. William, Mr. Lee, send us an email. All right. Our final story for today is Thai EV firm reportedly plans to buy 150,000 EVs from Chinese startup Aiways. Apparently, this is not doing very well locally, Aiways, but doing better in overseas markets.
Yeah, I think the Aiways brand, I believe they already sell them in Europe. I think maybe Norway has them.
Hmm.
I'll double check that for one of our future sort of episodes. But yeah, they sell them in Europe. One model, I think it was either the U5 or the U6. Um, that itself is an opportunity to get EVs. If they're not selling too well in China for whatever reason, Then right-hand drive markets, left-hand drive markets, there's plenty of demand in Europe and other places for affordable SUV EVs. So it'd be good to see how this goes. And we already know that BYD has done a big partnership with Six to supply 100,000 of new energy vehicles. They don't say if it's going to be pure EVs, Atto 3s, or whatever, but those large fleet customers are watching this space and saying, well, if the demand's not there in China, then we will take that.
That's right. I think that's where the money is, isn't it? Fleets and with discounts through innovative leasing, affordable electric vehicles such as these, they'll do very well for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. That's it for today's show, episode 5 of Tesla and EV news, and that's it from me and Riz. Riz, thank you very much again for your time as always.
Thanks, Tom. It's been good, a lot to catch up on, and good to finally exciting to see a government that will listen to us. And with the novated lease changes and fringe benefit tax coming in, it's a space worth watching. Thanks for your explanation today as well. I think it makes sense to just talk to your employer.
Absolutely, yep. And don't forget to quote these two terms to them, novated lease or salary sacrifice. I think you'll find that you'll be able to save some money if you've been eyeing that EV. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. We all shall see you next time. Otherwise, thanks for watching. And as always, happy charging.